Well, this week Chibs the Idiot doubled down again to ensure that his woke demands were met. And, well, the demands of the BBC. And it should also be noted that this episode was written by Vinay Patel, the same hack that wrote last year's race-baiting Demons of the Punjab. Oh, what fun we had with that one. Well, the internet had fun, and my haters had fun, but more on that later. Fugitive of the Judoon starts with your typical Chibs-era cringe fest. We start off with a terrible musical opening, in which we meet Ruth. More on that in a minute. We get reminded that white dudes are evil, harassing bastards, because what would a Chibs the Idiot era script be without that? And the BBC demands it anyway. The Judoon are our MacGuffins, and we get a return visit from Captain Jack, which appears to be shoehorned in during reshoots. We all wanted to see Captain Jack again, but not under these circumstances. And of course, he confuses Graham for the doctor because that's our ongoing joke. Just cram whatever in, eh, Chibs? Then near the end, we get what everyone's been talking about. Ruth is an earlier incarnation of the doctor, or something along those lines. Now let's go back to hypothetical land. Let's say something like this happened during the RTD or pre-Series 9 Moffat eras. We probably wouldn't be looking at motivations. We would be looking at exactly how this fits into canon if this is indeed an early version of our Doctor. She doesn't know what a sonic screwdriver is, and the TARDIS is clearly made to resemble its earliest version. I would be saying, how is this TARDIS a police box, seeing as it's made very clear that the chameleon circuit got stuck right before the events of an unearthly child. Moffat also made it clear that it was the first Doctor that stole the TARDIS, and clearly it wasn't a police box yet. If it were Moffat or RTD, we would be calling them out for continuity errors. We would also question how this regeneration fits into the original regeneration cycle. Peter Capaldi and Dr. Nasty are both part of the Doctor's second regeneration cycle, granted to Matt Smith at the end of The Time of the Doctor. It was established in The Deadly Assassin way back in 1976 that Time Lords have 13 lives. While this may have been just a throwaway line written by the great Robert Holmes, it has been accepted as canon for 43 years. Being granted a new regeneration cycle is also not something that Moffat just pulled out of his ass, because the possibility of a new regeneration cycle was canonized by Terrence Dicks in The Five Doctors in 1983. So we know that each regeneration cycle consists of 13 lives and new cycles can be granted. There is no way that this Ruth Doctor could be part of the original 13. While yes, there are only 11 Doctors in that cycle, one was the War Doctor and the other was the 10th Doctor regenerating into the same face. So 13 lives. Again, if this were RTD or Moffat, we would be asking them what the hell they're doing. If there was a Doctor before Hartnell, then it means that there was at least one full regeneration cycle pre-Hartnell. This undermines everything that has happened going back to 1963. Other much better showrunners and script editors have considered playing with the Doctor's backstory in such a fashion, but ultimately decided not to do it, because again, this undermines everything. Andrew Cartnell's original master plan went so far as to proclaim that the Doctor was God, but both him and J&T thought it was a bad idea in the end and decided to keep things deliberately vague. Stephen Moffat's favorite activity seems to have been playing with the question of who the Doctor was and is, and made it a point to establish that the only Doctors were the ones we saw on screen, or the first regeneration cycle. The only exception to this was the War Doctor, devised because Christopher Eccleston was unwilling to take part in the 50th anniversary special, but it's clear that this was originally meant to be his Doctor. John Hurt's performance was mesmerizing, but I never really thought shoehorning in another regeneration was the best way to solve this problem. I think that part of the story should have been given to Paul McGann, but it wasn't canon destroying. It could still be within the same regeneration cycle. The only thing that changed was that Matt Smith ended up being the final Doctor of the original 13 cycle. There is of course the possibility that this is another version of the Doctor from a mirror universe, and if this were RTD or pre-Series 9 Moffat, I would be hoping to hell that this was the explanation, and it probably would be, because they both had respect for Doctor Who lore and the show's legacy. But we aren't under either of these brilliant men, now are we? Nope, we're under Chibs the Idiot. So let's address the elephant in the room, the demographics of the casting. If this were RTD or Moffat, we would think it was a strange choice, but would probably say, Okay, we'll see where this goes, but you'd better not mess it up. 10 years ago, we would be viewing this very differently, but this isn't 2005 or 2010. It's 2020, and if we look at the evidence at hand, then it's obvious that this casting was done purely for ideological reasons. The BBC's discriminatory diversity and inclusion strategy has been in force for several years now, and it mandates which races and genders can appear on screen and work behind the scenes. Or to put it another way, it openly discourages white males from being hired at any level. It's not much of a stretch to say that this casting was made because of this strategy, which would not have been the case 10 or 15 years ago. And to be clear, I have nothing against this actress. She actually gave a better performance as the Doctor in 15 minutes than Jodie Whittaker has done in 2 series. And now that I've said that, I'll still be accused of attacking the actress. This is the Chibs the Idiot, Dr. Nasty era of Doctor Who. We know why this decision was made. It was done to bait and mock us with impunity thanks to the license fee. It was a middle finger to the many that have denounced this era because of what it stands for. Back in 2017, I warned of what I thought at the time was the worst case scenario for this era of the show formerly known as Doctor Who, now known as shit. How wrong I was. I had no idea of the blind hatred these people would have for this now over 56-year-old franchise. I couldn't have guessed at the level of hatred they would have for Doctor Who fans. They are not interested in giving us quality TV. They aren't capable of it. So that's not a surprise. They are only interested in appealing to that nasty little demographic that call themselves Doctor Who fans, but really are nothing more than brainwashed kids or hateful people looking for attention or people looking to blame everything else for their problems through the use of identity politics. And oh dear, it's been an interesting 24 hours on Twitter. Remember a few years back when some were saying that Generation Z was supposed to be the most conservative generation of the past 100 years. Yeah, it didn't really turn out that way, did it? Now, to be clear, I'm not picking on this entire age group, but I'm going to make some observations on some members of this group. As I said, this group has been brainwashed from birth. They've had parents that only focus on giving them unearned praise. They have school systems that teach them that if you're a straight white male, you are scum, a sexual predator, and a privileged individual, which, when in actuality, is anything but. All this because of the way you were born. This is also the generation that was raised on social media, which is only fueled the narcissism of certain elements of this age demographic. There is a divide in this group. Those at the higher end of the IQ spectrum are able to see the crap for what it is. I've had the pleasure of talking to many of you, so you do give us some hope. Those at the lower end of the IQ spectrum are the ones that repeat the same things over and over again on Twitter, without understanding what they are actually saying. You really don't know what racist and sexist actually means, do you? Being raised in the age of social media, this low IQ group is only interested in seeking attention and approval. Young feminists blame the straight white man for not being able to get ahead in the world. Well, let's look at a few things. If you took a useless degree in gender studies because you didn't want to do any actual work, then you have nobody to blame but yourselves. Also, because this group has been coddled their entire lives, they think the world owes them something. It doesn't. And if you think you are going to get a high-paying corporate job at 22, then you're just deluding yourself. Unless you work for the BBC, because talent, ability, and intelligence means nothing over there these days. You just have to tick the right box. It's the males in this group that you kind of have to feel sorry for. And my God, are these early 20-somethings going to get a harsh dose of reality in the near future. Ever noticed why male feminists amongst millennials are disappearing rapidly? I'll let you figure it out, but I doubt you'd have the brain power. There is also some hilarity in the hypocrisy of some of these people. For instance, there are a few white males between the ages of 22 to 25 whose profiles say they work in TV. Of course, I will not give their names. If it's the BBC, then I can assume mommy or daddy knew someone because that's the only way a straight white male would ever get hired over there these days. Some of these kids, sorry, but I refuse to call them men, have organized more than one hilariously over-the-top attack on my Twitter account. Their lack of self-awareness is hilarious, but not unsurprising. They bang on about diversity and equity hiring being a good thing, and if you don't support it, you are a sexist and a racist. All this does is expose your fake altruism. If you believe in this, then why don't you step aside because you're taking a job from a quote marginalized group? Oh wait, never mind, you're special, because you've been told this your entire life. I see, so it's others that must step aside, but you're above everyone else, so the rules you would have imposed on others don't apply to you. Pathetic, really. If you don't want to be the change you want to see, then kindly do everyone a favor and shut the fuck up. Why did I bring this into an episode review of Doctor Who, or the show formerly known as Doctor Who, now known as shit? Because what Chibs, the idiot, did this week finally broke the fandom, and now we have reached a point of no return. Again, I bear no ill will towards the actress. She did a fine job, and I couldn't help but smile a bit when she made fun of Dr. Nasty. It's the motivations, which are clear after the last few years, behind this choice that broke the fandom. You are not allowed to criticize it without being called all the favorite SJW buzzwords, and Doctor Who fandom is now disproportionately represented by these nasty little shits, and some older people who clearly have issues or are trying to hide something. One thing that I want to reinforce is that not all people that like this era are reprehensible. There are many civilized people, many of whom I've interacted with, that do like this era. They are respectful, and we can agree to disagree, and it doesn't degenerate into name-calling and accusations. There is nothing wrong with liking something that's objectively bad. Being a massive B horror movie fan, I can understand this all too well. Unfortunately, these people amongst 13th Doctor fans are in the slim minority. Up until 2 years ago, Doctor Who fandom was a great thing to be a part of. Those days are over. This regime and those that dare to call themselves Doctor Who fans have ruined it. It was once a great show, but it's over now, and I don't see it ever coming back. And that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe, and check your subscription and notification status because YouTube is being shady on these things lately, and follow me on Twitter. And as always, everyone, thank you for watching, and have a great day.